The conference room smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. Maya Chen stared at the error logs projected on the screen, her fingers trembling slightly as she held her laptop. She'd been awake for 36 hours straight, and the fluorescent lights felt like needles pushing into her skull. Around the long glass table, 12 senior engineers from Apex Technologies sat with their arms crossed, in faces ranging from exhausted to openly hostile. "We've already tried that." The voice belonged to Derek Morrison, lead systems architect, a man whose resume included stints at Google and Amazon. He didn't even look at Maya when he spoke. He was scrolling through his phone, one leg crossed over the other, radiating the particular kind of boredom that came from absolute certainty. "I understand, but if you look at line 2847 in the authentication service, Maya." This was James Hartwell, the CTO. He said her name the way a parent might address a child who'd interrupted an important adult conversation. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, but this isn't a learning exercise. We have 18 hours before the investor demo. 18 hours before we either secure 12 million in Series B funding or we start laying people off." The room fell silent. Someone coughed. Maya's throat tightened. She'd been at Apex for exactly 4 months. 4 months of being the youngest person in every meeting, the only woman on the infrastructure team. The one everyone assumed was an intern, even though her offer letter clearly said junior software engineer. 4 months of her ideas being ignored in meetings, only to hear them repeated by male colleagues 20 minutes later to sudden enthusiasm. "I'm just saying," Maya continued, her voice smaller now, "the memory leak isn't in the API layer. It's in how we're handling WebSocket connections during... We've checked the WebSocket implementation 3 times. This was Brad Kellerman, senior back-end engineer, speaking with the patience one might use with someone particularly slow. "That code was written by our principal engineer. It's solid." "Unless you're suggesting..." Derek finally looked up from his phone, his smile thin and cruel. "That you, someone who graduated from a state school 6 months ago, found something that Matt Rodriguez missed. Matt, who architected the real-time infrastructure at Uber." Laughter rippled around the table. Not cruel laughter exactly. Just the casual amusement of people who decided something was absurd before it was even fully articulated. Maya felt her face burning. The state school comment was a knife, and Derek knew exactly where to twist it. She'd gone to Cal State Fullerton, not Stanford. She'd worked 2 jobs to pay for it. She'd learned to code from YouTube videos and library books before she ever set foot in a computer science classroom. And yes, sometimes she still Googled basic concepts that everyone else seemed to know instinctively. "No," she said quietly, "I'm not suggesting that." "Good." James stood up and the meeting was over. "Derek, Brad, I want you both pulling an all-nighter on this. Check the database query optimization again. Maya, why don't you head home, get some rest? Fresh eyes tomorrow might help." It was a dismissal. Everyone in the room understood it. Maya gathered her laptop and water bottle, her movements mechanical. As she walked toward the door, she heard Derek's stage whisper, "Fresh eyes." Right. Like she'd know where to look anyway. More laughter, quieter this time, but she heard it. The Apex Technologies office occupied the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Outside, the November rain fell in steady sheets, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon and headlights. Maya sat in her 15-year-old Honda Civic in the parking garage, engine off, just breathing. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother in Sacramento. "How's work, honey? Your father wants to know if you're eating enough." Maya typed back, "Work's great. Tell Dad I'm eating fine." Both statements were lies. She pulled up a banking app. $2,847 in checking, 63 zeros in student loans, rent due in 6 days. $400 for a studio apartment she shared with cockroaches and the smell of her neighbor's weed. The apex salary was good, $95,000, which had seemed like a fortune until Seattle's cost of living devoured it like a hungry animal. She couldn't afford to lose this job. Couldn't afford to be seen as incompetent, difficult, or, worst of all, a diversity hire who couldn't hack it. Maya opened her laptop again, the blue light washing over her face in the darkness of the car. The error logs were still there, still inscrutable to everyone but her, because she'd been looking at them differently. She'd been looking at them the way someone who debugged 1,000 problems in her childhood bedroom might look at them, without assumptions, without ego, with the desperate hunger of someone who had everything to prove and nothing to fall back on. The memory leak was there. She knew it was there. Line 2, 847, where the WebSocket connections were being established. There was a tiny race condition, microseconds of bad timing when traffic spiked, the kind of thing that wouldn't show up in normal testing, only under the exact load conditions they'd been experiencing since the product launched 2 weeks ago. She'd seen it because she'd spent 3 nights running load tests on her personal AWS account, burning through money she didn't have, trying combinations that the senior engineers had deemed already explored. She'd seen it because she didn't trust that something was right just because someone important had built it. But what did it matter? No one was going to listen to her. Maya's phone buzzed again. This time it was Priya Mehta, the only other woman on the engineering team, though Priya was in product, not infrastructure. The text was simple. "You okay?" That meeting looked brutal. "Fine," Maya typed back. "Just tired. Want to grab a drink? Rain check. Need to think." She sat in the car for another hour, the rain drumming on the roof, watching the error logs scroll across her screen, watching the pattern that no one else could see or wouldn't see, or had decided wasn't there, because acknowledging it would mean acknowledging that they'd missed something obvious. By the time Maya drove home, she'd made a decision. It was probably a stupid decision. It might cost her the job she couldn't afford to lose. But sitting silently while the company burned down around her wasn't an option either. She was going to fix it anyway. Maya's apartment was exactly as depressing as a studio apartment for $400 could be. The kitchen was technically part of the living room, separated only by a change in flooring from carpet to linoleum. The bathroom door didn't close all the way. The windows looked out onto a brick wall, but it was hers, and it had reliable internet. And right now, that was all that mattered. She made instant ramen, ate it standing up, and then cleared her tiny desk of everything except her laptop, a notebook, and a large bottle of cold brew coffee. The company's code base was extensive, nearly 500,000 lines of code across dozens of microservices. Apex Technologies built real-time collaboration software for enterprise clients. Think Slack meets Figma meets Google Docs, but with better security and more integration options. The product was genuinely innovative, which was why investors were interested. It was also genuinely broken, which was why those same investors were getting nervous. The bug was catastrophic. Every few hours, seemingly at random, the entire system would slow to a crawl. Memory usage would spike. Connections would drop. Users would be kicked out of their sessions, and then, after about 10 minutes, everything would return to normal as if nothing had happened. It had started small, a few complaints, easily dismissed as internet issues. But after the big product launch 2 weeks ago, with paying enterprise customers actually using the platform, the problems had become impossible to ignore. Last Tuesday, the system had crashed during a live demo with a Fortune 500 company. That company had walked away. Hence the panic. Hence the all-hands meetings. Hence 12 senior engineers staying up all night trying to find a problem that Maya was 90% certain she'd already found. She pulled up the WebSocket implementation code. Matt Rodriguez had indeed written it. And on the surface, It looked perfect. Clean, efficient, following all the best practices. Matt was a legend in the Seattle tech scene, someone who spoke at conferences, whose GitHub repos had thousands of stars. But right there, in the connection pooling logic, there was a subtle issue. When a user initiated a connection, the system checked a pool of available connection handlers. If none were available, it created a new one. Standard stuff, but in the cleanup routine, the part that was supposed to close and remove connections when they were no longer needed, there was a tiny window where a connection could be marked as closed, but not actually removed from the pool. Under normal load, this didn't matter. The next garbage collection cycle would clean it up. But under high load, especially with the specific pattern of users connecting and disconnecting that happened during peak business hours, these zombie connections would accumulate. Not enough to crash anything immediately, but enough to slowly eat up memory until the system choked. The fix was actually simple. 4 lines of code, maybe 5. A different order of operations in the cleanup routine, a proper lock on the connection pool, and the problem would disappear. Maya opened a new branch in the company's Git repository. She hesitated for just a moment, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. This was against protocol. Junior engineers didn't push code to production without review, especially not code in critical infrastructure. Especially not code that contradicted the analysis of 12 senior engineers. If she was wrong, she'd be fired. If she was right, but did this the wrong way, she might still be fired. Maya thought about Derek's smirk, Brad's condescending patience, James's dismissal. She thought about her mother working double shifts as a nurse to help pay for her education, her father's quiet pride when she'd gotten the Apex offer letter, the weight of expectations and the fear of failure that sat on her chest every single morning. She started typing. By 3 in the morning, she'd not only identified the exact problem, but she'd written the fix, tested it locally against simulated load conditions, documented it in excruciating detail, and prepared a deployment script that could be rolled back instantly if anything went wrong. By 4 in the morning, she'd convinced herself this was career suicide. By 5 in the morning, she did it anyway. The code went live at 5:23 a.m. Pacific Time. Maya sat in her apartment, heart pounding, watching the monitoring dashboards like a gambler watching the roulette wheel spin. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the memory usage began to stabilize. The slow creep upward that had been present for weeks, so gradual that it was hard to notice, flattened out. Connection handling times normalized. The system didn't just work, it worked better than it had since launch. Maya exhaled. Then she opened her email and sent a message to James Hartwell, Derek Morrison, and the rest of the infrastructure team. Subject: Memory Leak Resolution. Deployed to production team. I've identified and resolved the memory leak in the WebSocket connection pooling system. The issue was a race condition in the cleanup routine that allowed closed connections to remain in the pool under high load. Fix deployed at 5:23 a.m. Memory usage has stabilized, and connection performance has improved by approximately 23%. Full technical documentation and rollback procedures attached. Maya Chen. She pressed send before she could change her mind. Then she crawled into bed, still fully clothed, and fell asleep to the sound of rain against her window and the quiet terror of what she'd just done. Maya's phone started ringing at 7:47 a.m. She grabbed it from her nightstand, eyes still gummy with sleep, and saw James Hartwell's name on the screen. Her stomach dropped. 2 hours. She'd slept for exactly 2 hours. "Hello?" Her voice came out rough. "My office, now." James hung up. Maya sat up, her heart hammering. The tone was impossible to read. Angry, definitely. But was it "you're fired" angry? Or what the hell were you thinking angry? There was a difference, though she wasn't sure the destination was any better either way. She threw on clean clothes, ran a toothbrush across her teeth, and drove through morning Seattle traffic in a fog of anxiety. The Apex parking garage was already full. It was barely 8:30, but the demo was in 9 hours, and everyone was clearly in crisis mode. The elevator ride to the third floor felt like descending into a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. James's office was glass-walled, which meant Maya could see the gathering before she even reached the door. James sat behind his desk, face unreadable. Derek stood near the window, arms crossed. Brad was there too, and Matt Rodriguez, the legendary principal engineer whose code Maya had effectively called flawed. Also present, Sarah Chen, the VP of engineering, and two people Maya didn't recognize who wore visitor badges. This was bad. James saw her approach and gestured curtly for her to enter. Maya's hands were shaking as she opened the door. "Sit," James said. She sat in the single chair facing the desk, feeling like a student called to the principal's office. Everyone else remained standing, creating a semicircle of judgment around her. "Do you want to explain?" James began, his voice dangerously calm. "What possessed you to deploy code to production at 5 in the morning without authorization, review, or approval?" Maya's throat was dry. "I found the bug, the memory leak. I documented everything, tested it, and violated about 6 different company protocols." Derek interrupted. "You pushed code to a live production environment that serves paying customers without a single code review. Do you have any idea what could have gone wrong?" "I know it was against protocol," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But the fix was time-sensitive, and I was confident." "Confident?" Matt Rodriguez spoke for the first time. He was younger than Maya had expected, maybe 35, with the kind of disheveled appearance that successful engineers wore like a badge of honor. "You were confident that you found something wrong with my code?" The way he said it made Maya's confidence waver. Matt wasn't being aggressive. His tone was genuinely curious, almost amused, which was somehow worse than anger. Yes. There was a race condition in the connection pool cleanup. It's in my documentation." She fumbled with her laptop, pulling up the technical write-up she'd sent. Sarah Chen held up a hand. "We've all read your documentation, Maya. Very thorough, actually." She turned to James. "The question is whether the fix actually works." "It works," Brad said grudgingly. "I've been monitoring the system since I got James's email at 6. Memory usage is stable. Connection handling is better than it's been since launch. Hell, the whole platform is running smoother." A long silence followed this admission. Derek made a noise of frustration. "That's not the point. The point is, she went rogue. What kind of precedent does this set? If every junior engineer decides they know better than the senior team missed it." This came from one of the people Maya didn't recognize, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes. "For 2 weeks. And you are?" Derek's tone was hostile. "Linda Castellano," the woman said mildly. "I'm with Redpoint Ventures. We're considering leading the Series B round. This is my technical advisor, Kevin Marsh." She nodded to the man beside her, a younger guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Maya felt the air change in the room. Investors. The investors were here, 12 hours before the scheduled demo, and they'd just witnessed a junior engineer being grilled for fixing the exact problem that had torpedoed the last investor pitch. James cleared his throat. "Linda, Kevin, this is an internal personnel matter. Perhaps we should—" "No, this is exactly what we came to assess," Linda said. She was looking at Maya now, appraising. "We heard about the crash during the Zenith Corp demo. We heard you've been having stability issues. I wanted to see the team dynamics firsthand before we put 12 million on the table." She walked over to Maya's laptop, still open to the technical documentation. "May I?" Maya nodded, mute. Linda read for a minute, scrolling through the code diff, the test results, the rollback procedures. Kevin looked over her shoulder. Finally, Linda straightened up. "This is good work," she said simply. "Clean fix, properly documented, shows both technical skill and risk awareness." She looked at James. Why wasn't she on the task force trying to solve this? "She's a junior engineer," Derek said, as if that explained everything. 4 months at the company. This problem required senior-level expertise. "And yet she solved it," Linda interrupted. "While your senior team was, what, checking database queries?" She looked at her notes. "That's what you told me yesterday, that the problem was definitely in the database layer." Derek's face flushed red. Sarah Chen stepped in, diplomatic. "We're still reviewing the proper procedures that should have been followed. Maya's fix appears to be effective, but the way it was implemented saved your demo," Linda finished. "Let's be clear about that. If this had crashed again today in front of us, we'd be walking. Now," she shrugged, "now we're still interested." James looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. "We appreciate your understanding, Linda. I assure you this breach of protocol will be addressed. Make her part of the demo." Everyone turned to stare at Linda. "I'm sorry," James said. "The demo, this afternoon. I want her presenting the technical architecture." Linda gestured at Maya. "If she understands the system well enough to find a bug that the senior team missed, she understands it well enough to present it. Besides, it'll be good optics. Young, diverse talent. Shows you're not just another boys' club." Maya wanted to disappear through the floor. Being used as a diversity prop was almost worse than being dismissed. But Linda's expression suggested she knew exactly what she was doing and wasn't particularly interested in objections. "That's not how we typically structure investor presentations," Sarah said carefully. "Then change it," Linda said. "Or we can talk to the founders at Nexus Collaborative. I hear they're raising a Series B too, and their platform doesn't crash." The threat hung in the air. James looked at Maya, and for the first time she saw something other than dismissal in his eyes. Not respect exactly, more like recalculation. She'd become valuable, but in the most uncomfortable way possible, as leverage in a negotiation that had nothing to do with her actual abilities. "Fine," James said. "Maya will co-present the infrastructure section with Derek. 30 minutes for prep. Derek, get her up to speed on the presentation deck." Derek looked like he'd been asked to swallow glass. "James," not up for discussion. James's voice had steel in it now. "Linda, Kevin, we'll see you at 6 p.m. for the full demo. Sarah, let's talk revenue projections in my office." The meeting was over. People filed out, and Maya was left standing with Derek, who looked at her with pure, undiluted resentment. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "You just made an enemy of everyone in this room." Then he walked away, leaving Maya alone with the hollow victory of being right in exactly the wrong way. The next 4 hours were a masterclass in professional hostility. Derek did brief her on the presentation, technically efficiently with all the warmth of a refrigerator manual. He spoke to her only when absolutely necessary, spent most of the prep time on his phone, and made it clear through body language alone that he considered this entire exercise a waste of his time. The other engineers were subtler, but no less clear. Brad stopped by Maya's desk once, ostensibly to ask a technical question about the fix, but his tone carried an undercurrent of something ugly. "Must be nice," he said, "having investors do your fighting for you." Matt Rodriguez sent her an email. "We should talk about the code review process. What you did was dangerous, regardless of outcome. Professional, measured, and implicitly threatening." Only Priya seemed genuinely happy. She appeared at Maya's desk around noon with Thai food and congratulations. Holy shit, Maya. You actually did it. You found the bug. And apparently committed professional suicide in the process, Maya said, picking at pad thai she didn't taste. They're just mad you made them look bad in front of the investors. Priya leaned against the desk, which, by the way, was beautiful to watch. Derek's face when Linda said you should present? I took a screenshot for my personal collection. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I know. That's what makes it great. Priya grinned. You know what your problem is? You actually care about the work. Everyone else here cares about looking like they care about the work. There's a difference. Maya wasn't sure that was fair. Plenty of engineers at Apex were genuinely talented and dedicated. But Priya had a point about the culture, the posturing, the resume building, the careful curation of perceived expertise. She'd been so focused on trying to fit into that culture that she'd forgotten she was actually good at this. How do I fix this? Maya asked. With the team, I mean. Priya considered. You don't. Not right away. You just proved that the Emperor has no clothes. The seniors aren't going to forgive that quickly. Your best bet? Do such consistently good work that they can't ignore you. Eventually, they'll either respect you or leave. Or they'll make my life so miserable I leave first. Also possible, Priya admitted. But hey, at least you'll have a great story for your next interview. It wasn't particularly comforting. The investor demo began at 6 p.m. in the main conference room, the one with the good chairs and the espresso machine that actually worked. Linda Castellano and Kevin Marsh sat on one side of the table. On the other side, James, Sarah, and the CEO of Apex Technologies, Marcus Webb, a Stanford MBA who'd founded the company 3 years ago and who Maya had met exactly once during her hiring process. Maya and Derek stood near the presentation screen, Maya's palms sweating, Derek radiating cold professionalism. Marcus opened with the vision speech, how Apex was revolutionizing enterprise collaboration, the market opportunity, the traction with early customers. He was good at this, charismatic and confident, painting a picture of inevitable success. Then came the product demo, handled by the product team, showing off features and use cases, and then it was their turn. Now, I'd like to turn things over to our infrastructure team, Marcus said smoothly. Derek Morrison, our lead systems architect, and Maya Chen, who recently joined us from... He paused, checking his notes. Cal State Fullerton. They'll walk you through the technical architecture and our recent stability improvements. The Cal State Fullerton mention felt pointed, a reminder of hierarchy, but Maya pushed the thought aside. Derek took the lead, walking through the system architecture with practiced ease. He was genuinely good at this, clear, concise, answering Kevin's technical questions without condescension. For a moment, Maya thought she might just be set dressing, a prop to satisfy Linda's diversity requirements. Then Linda interrupted. Tell me about the memory leak. Derek paused mid-sentence. The stability issue we experienced was related to load balancing optimization. We've since resolved. No, Linda said. I want to hear about the memory leak, the WebSocket connection pooling bug. Maya, she looked directly at her. You found it. Explain it. Every eye in the room turned to Maya. This was a test. Linda was testing whether Maya actually understood what she'd fixed or whether she'd just gotten lucky, and everyone else in the room, Marcus, James, Sarah, Derek, was watching to see if she'd embarrass them. Maya took a breath and stepped forward. The bug was a race condition, she began, her voice steadier than she felt. Under normal load, our WebSocket connection pooling worked exactly as designed. But during peak traffic, specifically when we had rapid connect-disconnect cycles from users joining and leaving collaborative sessions, there was a window, microseconds, where a connection could be marked as closed but not removed from the pool. She pulled up a diagram on the screen. The cleanup routine had an order of operations problem. It updated the connection status first, then attempted to remove it from the pool. But in a high concurrency environment, another thread could grab a reference to that connection in between those two steps. The connection would be closed, but still referenced, creating a memory leak that accumulated over time. Kevin leaned forward. How did you identify it? That kind of race condition wouldn't show up in standard testing. It didn't, Maya said. I ran load tests that specifically simulated the usage patterns we were seeing in production. High concurrency, rapid session turnover. I varied the timing and load profiles until I could reproduce the memory leak consistently. On company infrastructure? On my personal AWS account, actually. Maya felt her face heat. I wanted to test theories without affecting production systems. Kevin and Linda exchanged a look. Kevin made a note. The fix, Maya continued, was to reverse the operation order and add a proper lock. Update the pool first, then change the connection status. It prevents the race condition entirely, and as a bonus, it actually improved overall connection handling performance by about 23%, because we're no longer doing cleanup work on zombie connections. She showed the before and after monitoring graphs. The improvement was undeniable. How long did this take you to find? Linda asked. 3 days of testing, maybe 40 hours total. And the senior team had been looking for 2 weeks, Derek said tightly. Another long silence. Marcus stepped in, smooth as ever. This demonstrates the kind of collaborative problem-solving culture we're building at Apex. Team members at all levels contributing. Let's not pretend this was collaborative, Linda said dryly. She found it working alone, deployed it without approval, and saved your demo. I'm not criticizing. I'm actually impressed with the initiative, but I want to understand the team dynamics here. She looked at Derek. How do you feel about a junior engineer finding something you missed? It was a brutal question, asked with the casual cruelty of someone who held all the leverage. Derek's jaw worked. I think, he said carefully, that Maya demonstrated technical skill and poor judgment. The fix was correct, but the process was reckless. In a mature engineering organization, we have review procedures for a reason. And if she'd followed those procedures, Linda pressed, would her solution have been implemented before today's demo? Derek didn't answer. Exactly, Linda said. She turned to Marcus and James. Here's my position. The technology is solid, the market opportunity is real, but I'm seeing signs of a culture problem. Talented people being underutilized, hierarchies that prevent good ideas from surfacing, the usual startup growing pains. Marcus started to object, but Linda held up a hand. It's not a deal breaker. Every company goes through this. But here's what I need to see before I sign the term sheet. A real career development plan for junior engineers. Mentorship programs, clear pathways for advancement that aren't just based on tenure. And, she looked at Maya, I want to see her promoted. Not as a token gesture, but with real responsibility and compensation to match. Maya's heart stopped. She hadn't been expecting this, hadn't even thought about it. James's expression was carefully neutral. That's certainly something we can discuss internally. Discuss it now, Linda said. Give me a number. What's her current salary? I don't think that's, Sarah began. 95,000. Maya heard herself say. Every fibre of her being screamed that she shouldn't have spoken, shouldn't have revealed that information, but Linda's directness had pulled it out of her. Make it 130, Linda said to James. Mid-level engineer salary plus a bump for the production save. Give her the title and the responsibilities to match, and then show me, over the next 6 months, that you're building a culture where this kind of problem-solving is rewarded instead of punished. Linda, Marcus said, his charm wearing thin, we appreciate your feedback, but compensation and promotion decisions are internal matters. Then we don't have a deal. Linda stood up, Kevin following suit. I'm not investing $12 million in a company that can't recognize talent when it's literally saving their ass. Your technical skills are excellent. Your product is strong. But if you can't fix your culture, someone else will eat your lunch. She picked up her bag. You have until Monday to send me an updated term sheet with these provisions. Otherwise, we're moving on to other opportunities. And with that, she walked out, Kevin trailing behind her with an apologetic shrug. The room sat in stunned silence. Then Marcus turned to look at Maya, and his expression was not friendly. "My office," he said. "Now." Maya followed him out, very aware that whatever happened next would determine whether she still had a job at all. Marcus Webb's office was on the top floor, with windows that overlooked Lake Union. The view was spectacular. Sailboats, seaplanes, the city spreading out like a promise. Maya barely registered it. She was too busy trying to breathe normally while Marcus paced behind his desk like a caged animal. James and Sarah had followed them up. Derek had wisely made himself scarce. "Do you have any idea," Marcus finally said, "what you just did?" "I fixed a critical bug," Maya offered, though she knew that wasn't what he meant. "You put us in an impossible position." Marcus stopped pacing and faced her directly. "Linda Castellano just made our funding contingent on promoting you. Do you understand how that looks? We can't have investors dictating personnel decisions. It sets a precedent that destroys our credibility with the rest of the team." "But if you don't," Sarah said quietly, "we lose the funding, and probably the company. We could find other investors." "Not in this market," James interrupted. "Not with our burn rate. You know the numbers, Marcus. We have 4 months of runway. Linda's term sheet is the best offer we've gotten by a mile. If we walk away from it over pride—" "It's not pride," Marcus's voice rose. "It's about maintaining organizational integrity. If every junior engineer thinks they can go rogue and then use investor pressure to strong-arm a promotion—" "That's not what I did," Maya said. Her own anger was rising now, overcoming the fear. "I didn't ask Linda to do any of this. I didn't want any of this. I just wanted to fix the bug before we crashed in front of the investors again." "Without following process," Marcus shot back. "Without review, without testing." "I did test it extensively. It's all documented. On your personal AWS account." Marcus's face was flushed. "Using company code in an unauthorized environment. That alone is a security violation that could get you terminated for cause." The threat landed like a punch. Maya felt her legs go weak. Sarah stepped between them. "Marcus, let's take a breath here. The code is in production. It works, and we have a term sheet on the table that could save this company. We need to be strategic about how we respond." Marcus ran his hand through his hair, looking suddenly exhausted. He was 32, Maya remembered, just 7 years older than her, and he had the weight of a company and 60 employees on his shoulders. In that moment, she could almost understand his anger. It wasn't really about her. It was about the loss of control, the feeling of being backed into a corner. "What do you want?" Marcus asked her directly. "Not what Linda wants. You. What do you want from this?" Maya considered. What did she want? To be respected, to do good work, to not wake up every morning terrified that she didn't belong here. "I want to be judged on my abilities," she said finally. "Not my age, not my school, not my gender, just whether I can do the work." "That's naive," Marcus said, but his tone had softened slightly. "This industry doesn't work that way. Fair or not, perception matters, politics matter, and right now you're at the center of a political shitstorm." "Through no fault of her own," Sarah pointed out. "Doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's still her problem. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. Here's the reality, Maya. If I promote you under these conditions, half the engineering team will think you slept your way into it, or cried discrimination. If I don't promote you, we lose funding and everyone loses their job. Either way, you're going to have a target on your back. So what's the third option? James asked. There isn't one. Marcus looked at Maya. I'm sorry, I really am. You did excellent work. Under different circumstances, this would be straightforward, but Linda's ultimatum has poisoned the well. Silence settled over the office. Outside, the sun was setting over the lake, painting everything in gold and shadow. Maya thought about her mother, who'd faced much worse than this as a Filipino immigrant in the American healthcare system. Her mother, who'd endured condescension, racism, and assumptions about her competence, and who'd never once let it stop her from being an exceptional nurse. Her mother, who'd taught Maya that doing excellent work was its own reward, even when the system refused to acknowledge it. "Promote me," Maya said. Everyone looked at her. "Promote me," she repeated. "Accept Linda's terms. Let people think whatever they want to think. I know the truth about what I did and why. And I'll keep doing excellent work until the people who matter recognize it." "Maya," Sarah began, "I'm not going to apologize for being good at my job." Maya continued, her voice steady now. "And I'm not going to pretend I should have sat quietly while the company crashed just to avoid making senior engineers uncomfortable. If you want to fire me over the security violation, fine. But if you're keeping me, then I want the promotion, not because Linda demanded it, because I earned it." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile, but it wasn't cruel either. It was the smile of someone recognizing a fellow fighter. "All right," he said. "You want to play hardball? Let's play. I'll give you the promotion. Mid-level engineer, 130 base, full benefits. But here are my conditions. You report directly to Matt Rodriguez. He'll be your mentor and your supervisor. Every line of code you write goes through review. Every decision gets signed off. You want to be judged on your abilities? Fine. But you do it by the book from now on." It was a gilded cage, promotion with a leash. "And one more thing," Marcus added. "You're presenting at the all-hands meeting tomorrow. You'll explain what you did, why you did it, and apologize for the process violations. You'll make it clear that this isn't how we operate and that you understand why protocols exist." "A public apology?" Maya felt her stomach turn. "Call it what you want, but if we're going to move forward from this, the team needs to see that you take responsibility for the disruption you caused." "The disruption I caused," Maya repeated slowly, "by fixing a problem that was about to tank the company." "Yes," Marcus said. "Welcome to leadership, where doing the right thing still requires political cleanup." The all-hands meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Friday morning in the main common area. Every employee at Apex was there, 60 people, sitting on couches, standing against walls, all of them knowing exactly why they'd been called together. Maya stood at the front, her laptop connected to the large TV screen, her notes trembling slightly in her hands. Matt Rodriguez stood beside her, a silent presence that was meant to be supportive, but felt more like a guard. Marcus did the introduction. He explained the investor situation, the funding terms, the promotion. He framed it all carefully, praising Maya's technical skills, while emphasizing the importance of process and collaboration. It was a masterful piece of corporate doublespeak, celebrating her and rebuking her in the same breath. Then it was her turn. "Thank you, Marcus," Maya began, her voice echoing slightly in the high-ceilinged room. "I want to start by addressing what happened this week. I identified a critical bug in our WebSocket implementation, and I deployed a fix to production without proper authorization or review. This violated our engineering protocols, and I take full responsibility for that." She could see Derek in the back, arms crossed, expression unreadable. I made the decision I did because I believed the fix was time-critical and I was confident in my solution. But confidence doesn't excuse circumventing process. Our code review system exists for good reasons: to catch errors, to share knowledge, to maintain code quality. By bypassing it, I put our production environment at risk, regardless of whether the outcome was positive. This was the part Marcus had insisted on, the public contrition. Going forward, Maya continued, I'm committed to working within our established processes. I'll be working closely with Matt Rodriguez. She nodded to him. And all of my code will go through proper review channels. I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue contributing to Apex, and I hope to earn your trust through consistent collaborative work. She paused, then added something that wasn't in her prepared notes. That said, I want to be clear about something. I found the bug because I approached the problem differently than the senior team did. I ran tests they didn't run, checked assumptions they didn't check. That's not a criticism. It's how problem-solving works. Different perspectives, different approaches. I'm young and relatively inexperienced, but that doesn't mean my insights aren't valuable. Matt shifted beside her. This wasn't part of the script. I don't want this promotion if it means I have to stop thinking independently or if I have to apologize for being competent. I'll follow process, absolutely. But I won't apologize for being good at this work, and I hope that moving forward we can build a culture where junior engineers feel empowered to share their insights without fear, and where senior engineers can acknowledge gaps in their knowledge without it being seen as weakness. She could feel the temperature in the room change. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others, particularly some of the other junior engineers, were nodding. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. Dead silence. Then, from somewhere in the back, someone started clapping. Slow, deliberate claps. Maya's heart sank. It sounded sarcastic, but then other people joined in. Not everyone, maybe a third of the room. But real applause, not polite corporate patter. Marcus's expression suggested he was reconsidering every decision that had led to this moment. Matt stepped forward, taking control. Thanks, Maya. Before we wrap up, I want to add something. I wrote the original WebSocket implementation that Maya's fix corrected. I'm not happy that there was a bug in my code, but I'm professional enough to admit when I'm wrong. The fix is good. It's actually elegant. And it's exactly the kind of creative problem-solving we should be encouraging. He looked at Derek as he said this, and the message was clear: fall in line. Maya will be joining my team directly, Matt continued. We'll be working together on the next phase of infrastructure scaling. I expect everyone to welcome her as a colleague and to treat her with the respect her skills deserve. It was as close to a blessing as Maya was going to get from the senior engineering team. The meeting broke up. People approached Maya, some to congratulate her, others to introduce themselves properly for the first time. Priya gave her a huge hug. A few junior engineers thanked her quietly as if she'd fought a battle on their behalf. But Maya also noticed the people who didn't approach her. Derek left immediately. Brad gave her a tight smile and nothing else. Several of the senior engineers clustered together, their body language exclusive and judgmental. She'd won, but the victory tasted like ash. That evening, Maya sat in her apartment, staring at the email from HR that made everything official. Effective immediately. Promotion to mid-level software engineer. Salary $130,000. Reporting to Matt Rodriguez, principal engineer. She should have felt elated. Instead, she felt exhausted. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Your father saw the news. Someone posted about Apex getting funding on TechCrunch and mentioned you by name. He's very proud. Maya clicked the link her mother sent. Sure enough, there it was. A 3-paragraph blurb in TechCrunch about Apex's Series B funding, and buried in the 3rd paragraph. The deal comes after junior engineer Maya Chen identified and resolved a critical infrastructure bug that had been plaguing the platform. Junior engineer, not even mid-level yet at the time the article was written. Maya wondered how Derek felt, reading that, how Brad felt, whether they'd understand that she didn't want this attention, didn't want to be a symbol or a story, just wanted to do good work and be left alone. Another text, this time from an unknown number. Hey, this is Matt. Do you have some time this weekend to talk about the infrastructure roadmap? I want to get your input on some scaling challenges we're facing. No pressure, but I think your perspective could be valuable. It was the first time anyone senior had asked for her input without it being prompted by crisis or investor pressure. Maya typed back, sure. Saturday afternoon work? Perfect. I'll send over the docs. And Maya, for what it's worth, you gave a good speech today. The second part especially. She smiled despite herself. Maybe this would work out, maybe not. But she'd proven something to herself that mattered more than any promotion. She could trust her own judgment, even when everyone else doubted it. That night, Maya slept deeply for the first time in a week. 3 months later, Maya stood in front of a different conference room, presenting to a different audience. This time, it was the monthly engineering all hands. This time, she'd been invited to present. And this time, her slides detailed a complete overhaul of Apex's infrastructure monitoring system. A project she'd led, working with Matt and a small team of engineers. The system was brilliant. It used machine learning to predict potential failures before they became critical, analyzed patterns in system behavior that humans might miss, and had already prevented 2 major outages in the beta testing phase. Questions? Maya asked, finishing her presentation. Derek's hand went up. Of course it did. 3 months hadn't made them friends. Derek was professional now, respectful even. But there was a wall between them that Maya suspected would never fully come down. Some wounds in professional relationships didn't heal, they just scabbed over. Yes, Derek, she said. The ML model, he said. What's the false positive rate in production conditions? It was a fair question, actually. About 8% currently, Maya said. We're working on tuning it down to under 5. The trade-off is we'd rather have false alarms than miss a real issue. Derek nodded. Makes sense. Have you considered using an ensemble approach, multiple models voting? We have, actually. Maya pulled up a slide she'd kept in reserve. We're testing it now. Initial results look promising. Brings the false positive rate down to 3%. Derek made a note. Then, unexpectedly, he said, good work. It wasn't warm. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was acknowledgement. Maya would take it. The 3 months since her promotion had been the most challenging and rewarding of her career. Matt Rodriguez had turned out to be an excellent mentor, demanding but fair, willing to explain his reasoning, open to being challenged. He'd taught Maya not just how to write better code, but how to navigate the politics of engineering organizations, how to build consensus, how to know when to push and when to compromise. Technical skills are table stakes, he'd told her one afternoon over coffee. What separates good engineers from great ones is the ability to get excellent work done within imperfect systems. Under Matt's guidance, Maya had learned to pick her battles. She'd learned to document everything, to bring people along in her reasoning rather than springing solutions on them. She'd learned the difference between being right and being effective. The monitoring system project had been Matt's idea of a test, something complex enough to prove her capabilities, high profile enough that success would cement her reputation, but with enough support that failure wouldn't destroy her career. She'd passed. More than that, she'd thrived. The project had forced her to collaborate with teams across the company, front-end, back-end, DevOps, product. She'd had to present to executives, negotiate deadlines with project managers, mentor 2 junior engineers who'd been assigned to help her. All the things that had seemed impossible 3 months ago now felt merely difficult. After the all-hands meeting, Maya returned to her desk, no longer in the open bullpen, but in a quiet corner near Matt's office. One of the perks of the promotion. Priya appeared with bubble tea, as had become their Friday tradition. "You crushed it," Priya said, handing over the drink. Even Derek looked impressed. "Derek looked constipated," Maya corrected, but she was smiling. "But yeah, it went well." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping their drinks and watching the Seattle rain through the windows. Spring rain now, not winter, carrying the promise of better weather ahead. "Can I ask you something?" Priya said. "Do you regret it? The way everything went down?" Maya considered. "Which part? Any of it? Deploying without approval, the investor thing, the public apology, all of it." "I regret the way it happened," Maya said slowly. "I wish I'd found a way to get the fix implemented without creating chaos. I wish Linda hadn't put conditions on the funding. I wish I hadn't had to do a perp walk in front of the whole company. But I don't regret fixing the bug, and I don't regret standing up for myself." Maya turned to face Priya. The system was broken, not just the code, but the culture. The way ideas were dismissed based on who said them instead of whether they were good. The way experience was valued over insight. If my fuck-up forced the company to examine that, maybe it was worth it. "Very philosophical of you," Priya said dryly. "I'm serious. I talked to one of the other junior engineers last week, Kenji, from the front-end team. He told me that before my whole situation, he'd been afraid to speak up in code reviews when he saw problems. Now he does. Not aggressively, but he asks questions, points things out, and people listen." "You're saying you're a revolutionary?" "I'm saying maybe I accidentally started a conversation that needed to happen." Maya grinned. "Plus, the $35,000 raise doesn't hurt." Priya laughed. "There she is. I was worried you'd gone all mature and corporate on me." That evening, Maya met Matt for their now regular Friday debrief at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill. It was a ritual they'd established. End of week, reviewing what went well, what could improve, discussing the roadmap ahead. Matt was already there, 2 Americanos on the table. "So," he said as Maya sat down, "you survived your first major project presentation. How does it feel?" "Like I might actually know what I'm doing," Maya admitted. "You do, though don't let it go to your head. There's plenty you still don't know." But Matt was smiling. "I got good feedback from the exec team. They want to expand the monitoring system to cover the API layer next. That'd be your project to lead, if you want it." "Really? Really? You've proven you can handle the technical complexity and the team coordination. Plus, after you identified that WebSocket bug, people trust your instincts on infrastructure problems." Maya felt a flutter of pride. Then a thought occurred to her. "Is Derek okay with this? The API layer is his domain. I already talked to him. He's fine with it. Not thrilled, but professional. He's actually the one who suggested we bring you onto the API team." Matt paused. "I think he's realized that fighting with you is counterproductive. You're here, you're competent, and resenting you doesn't change either of those facts." "That's almost heartwarming. Don't push it. Derek's coming around, but you're never going to be best friends." Matt took a sip of his coffee. "Which brings me to something I wanted to talk to you about. Your career path." Maya's stomach clenched slightly. "Am I in trouble?" "No, opposite actually. Sarah Chen asked me if you'd be interested in interviewing for a senior engineer position." The world seemed to stop. "Senior engineer? I've been mid-level for 3 months." "I know, it's fast. But here's the thing. You're already operating at that level. The monitoring system project, that's senior-level work. Your technical skills, your ability to see patterns others miss, your growing leadership capabilities. Sarah thinks you could make the jump." "What do you think?" Maya asked carefully. Matt was quiet for a moment. I think you could do it. I also think it might be too soon. Not because you lack the skills, but because of politics. You've already got people who think you've been promoted too fast, who attribute your success to the investor pressure rather than your abilities. Jumping to senior this quickly would reinforce that narrative. So I should wait. I'm saying you should think about what you want. Do you want the title and the money? Or do you want to consolidate your position, build relationships, prove yourself beyond any doubt? There's no wrong answer, but there are different consequences. Maya thought about Derek's grudging acknowledgement, about the junior engineers who'd started speaking up, about her mother's pride and her own still fragile confidence. I want to wait, she said. Another year, maybe. Build a track record that's undeniable. Then when I make senior, no one can say it wasn't earned. Matt nodded approvingly. That's mature thinking. I'll tell Sarah. Though for what it's worth, I think you've already earned it. What happened 3 months ago, that took guts. Not everyone would have had the courage to push that fix through. Consequences be damned. Or the stupidity, Maya said. Sometimes courage and stupidity look the same from the outside. The difference is in the outcome. Matt finished his coffee. Speaking of which, I heard through the grapevine that Linda Castellano has been telling the story of your bug fix to other founders. Apparently, you're her favorite example of why companies should listen to junior talent. Maya groaned. Great. I'm an anecdote. It could be worse. You could be a cautionary tale. Matt stood up. Get some rest this weekend. Monday we start planning the API monitoring expansion. And Maya, I'm glad you're on my team. Just thought you should know. He left before Maya could respond, which was probably intentional. Matt wasn't big on emotional moments, but as Maya walked home through the spring rain, she felt something unfamiliar. Contentment. Not happiness exactly, not yet, but the sense that she was building something real, something sustainable. 6 months after the WebSocket incident, Apex Technologies closed their Series B funding round. $12 million from Redpoint Ventures, led by Linda Castellano. The company used the money to expand the engineering team, improve their infrastructure, and launch several new product features. User growth accelerated, more enterprise clients signed on. The company that had been 2 weeks away from disaster was now being mentioned in the same breath as Slack and Notion. Maya watched all of this with a mixture of pride and remove. She'd played a part in saving the company, but she'd also learned that companies weren't families and work wasn't identity. She did excellent work because that was what she valued in herself, not because she expected the company to love her for it. Some relationships had healed. Matt had become a genuine mentor and friend. Priya had been promoted to senior product manager, and they still had their Friday bubble tea tradition. Even Brad had softened, occasionally asking Maya's opinion on technical problems. Some relationships remained broken. Derek was professional but distant. A few of the old guard engineers never quite forgave her for exposing their blind spots. And that was okay. Maya had learned that not everyone needed to like her for her to be successful. She'd also learned that success came in different forms. Yes, she'd gotten the promotion and the raise, but more importantly, she'd proven to herself that she could trust her own judgment, even when everyone else doubted it. That was worth more than any title. 1 year to the day after she'd deployed the WebSocket fix, Maya sat in a different coffee shop with a different junior engineer. Her name was Jessica Tran, fresh out of Georgia Tech, 3 weeks into her role at Apex. Jessica had approached Maya nervously after a team meeting, asking if she could pick her brain about navigating the engineering culture. Everyone here is so experienced, Jessica said, stirring her latte anxiously. I feel like I don't know anything. Like I'm going to make some stupid mistake and everyone will realize I shouldn't be here. Maya smiled. She remembered that feeling intimately. Let me tell you a story, she said. about a bug and a choice, and what happened after. She told Jessica everything, the all-nighters, the dismissed suggestions, the terror and exhilaration of deploying code at 5 in the morning. The investor confrontation, the public apology, the slow rebuilding of trust, the mistakes she'd made and the things she'd learned. Jessica listened, eyes wide. "So, what do I do?" she asked when Maya finished. "When I see something that I think is wrong, but I'm afraid to speak up." "You speak up anyway," Maya said. "But you do it smart. You document your reasoning. You test your theories. You build a case that's undeniable, and then you present it in a way that makes people want to listen. What if they still don't listen? Then you decide how important the issue is. Is it worth going around the process? Worth the political cost? Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no. That's the judgment you build over time." Jessica nodded slowly. "Were you scared when you deployed that fix?" "Terrified," Maya admitted. "I thought I might get fired, I thought I might be wrong. But I was more scared of staying silent and watching the company fail. Fear is useful, it makes you careful, but it can't be what makes your decisions for you." They talked for another hour, about code and culture, about the particular challenges of being young and female in tech, about the balance between confidence and humility. Maya shared what she'd learned, what she wished someone had told her. When they parted ways, Jessica looked less anxious than when they'd started. Maya walked back to the office, thinking about cycles and patterns. She'd been where Jessica was a year ago. In another year, Jessica might be mentoring someone else, knowledge flowing forward, each generation learning from the mistakes and triumphs of the last. It wasn't a perfect system. There would still be bugs, in code and in culture. Still be people who got overlooked. Still be talent that went unrecognized. But maybe, incrementally, it could get better. That was the hope anyway. Maya presented her API monitoring expansion to leadership, earning unanimous approval. She was formally promoted to senior engineer based on sustained excellence, leadership and impact, not pressure or circumstance. Matt later acknowledged her technical insight and how her work humbled and strengthened the team. That night, Maya shared the news with her proud parents and reflected on her growth, from a fearful junior engineer to a confident senior one. Returning to her work, she embraced her identity as an engineer who trusts her judgment, builds what matters, and finally feels she belongs.